Okay, so good afternoon, everyone.
Very sir.
Okay, so
Okay,
this
so
afternoon, we will not discuss physics, ha? We will discuss three eyes lang sa, because we need to finish our discussion about this lesson karon kay nag-upload ko og kanang module, wala pa na ako na-discuss sa inyo to So ato i-discuss karon. And then sa physics, siguro ugma i-inform ta mo what will be the flow sa itong physics for your finals, because we'll be discussing tomorrow sa physics about machines. And then on your finals, we'll be focusing na dayon sa inyong performance task. So maghatag og project sa inyo dana. Okay? Okay, so nasabtan akong announcement. Okay.
yes, sir.
So let's discuss this one. Please tell me kung di na sa inyo ba akong tingog or kala
Wala.
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 Okay, so I'm sorry for that, class. Okay, can you see the presentation na?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So let's talk about essentials of conducting an
Yes,
experiment.
sir.
Okay. Another ko lang sa another announcement also. Din ako magpa-community engagement sa inyo as part of your performance task. Uh, my performance task now, I will be collaborating with Miss Silva. So I will be quiet. The final project ninyo for Three Eyes will be based from your capstone research. Okay, the output. Ito, yan na yung human na dyan ninyo. Okay? So, let's talk about essentials of conducting an experiment. Okay, to conduct an experiment or to collect a data, you have to obtaining the data, okay, through gathering might be possible through observation or by experimentation. So, what is the difference between observation and experimentation? Actually, there's a big difference between the two. No, although they are sound kanang the same, no, the sound, the purpose of these two is the same ra gyapon, but if ato siyang subayo ng iyang procedure, ang process behind this two is laylay din siya. So what is the difference between observation and experimentation? So observation is can be obtained either by questionnaires or survey forms. And it must contain questions or queries raised in a straightforward manner and are as concise as possible, such that the target information would easily be obtained. If we gather data, you have to consider also the main concern of the interviewees. Diba? So how before we interview, before we ask our respondents about our questions nga link sa atong study, you have to consider the following. First, allowing them to be fully informed about what is the purpose of the study or what is the purpose of our survey, and of course, though, their privacy. So, when it comes to privacy class, na difference between ang questionnaire or ang kanang interview. Why? Sa interview man good, natay kitawag nga documentation. So, dili man good sa pwede nga sa interview, ang documentation lang nimo is about lang the recordings and the written outputs. So, kinahanglan pod og pictures. No, we have to gather some pictures as sort of evidence nato nga we really did conduct the study that naatay conjud no naay mga tinuod nga mga tao involved during sa gathering sa data. And in other words, every important details must be explicitly conveyed and that mutual understanding exists between the two parties. Because if we will be doing some surprise interview to them without even telling them the purpose of the survey or the interview, base mag-lead siya og kanang kwan. Kasi mag-lead siya og miscommunication. So, base noon, dili na to ma-achieve ang target nato nga result or ang target nga data no sa atong study. So, since we're talking about survey and interview, no, so what is the surveying and interview is all about? So, surveying and interviewing calls for description of people's is also about the surveying and interviewing calls for a description of people's attitudes, perceptions, or feelings about a certain issue. You can infer that for the inquiries associated with this method, the following questions may be used as guide in determining what particular information should be taken from those interviews. So, if you talk about survey and interview, we're just talking about the people's perception, what will be their comments, what will be their reactions, about the certain issues, especially especially the content, or especially what is inside our questionnaire, and what will be the questions that will be asked to them. So some of the information, some of the questions might be one of the following. No, what information are you looking for based on your observation? Who will be included in this observation? In what particular situation would you consider doing the observations? When is the best time to conduct the observation? And also, no, we have here, where do you want this observation to take place? How are you going to document these observations, and who will be the most trustworthy people to carry out the observations? So those are the following things that or information that you need to determine if we, uh, if we ask our respondents or interviewees about about our favor on letting them, or allowing them, or allowing us, to conduct an interview or survey to them. So we have to consider these following questions. Okay, how about experimentation? So observation, we have there the survey, we have there the interview, creating questionnaires, etc. How about experimentation? Actually, experimentation is all about data collection via experimentation, which involves work performed inside a laboratory. The research topics being investigated are not commonly witnessed phenomena. So I'm not going to read the whole context of experimentation, but the difference between experimentation and observation in good class is that, let's take for example the dissertation and the term paper. To those who are kwan, especially those who are taking karipitang kwan, doctorals and masterals. Okay, so most of their studies, manggod, were obviously kwan sila. Most of the studies that they do, original jud dapat. So, kung saan nila pag-achieve ang result, nga original gyapon ang output or ang outcome. Natin katawag nga experimentation. Okay? They do some experiment. I'm not talking only the scientific process or way nga experimentation, but I'm talking about the procedure that is where experimentation is also present. So through experimentation, they can conduct their own study, they can perform their own study. Uh, they can do whatever is necessary for the study if it involves mga hands-on, or let's say it involves a field work, no, nga mga data gathering and data collections. So most of the result that you can find in experimentation can either be quantitative or qualitative in nature. And it is also scientifically accepted and correct because, again, you have conducted the experiment in a systematic way. Okay? So if it involves systematic and logical nga mga performances or procedure, then it means that the result that will be, or the outcome will be mostly scientifically accepted and correct. So comparing that one to research as well, through statistical na methods using the correct measurement, makuha na to ang kwan, no, ang answer jud. Pero not really. Sometimes we are not achieving the kwan jud, the actual result that we're expecting. Pero naay closeness, no, between sa actual result supposedly nga atong gusto makuha o sa result nga nakuha nato after gathering the data. Experimentation is a means of demonstrating the essence of concepts and ideas in a laboratory setting. However, as all are yet to be tested and proven, it has to be performed under controlled conditions. So yeah, it's the same thing that I mentioned the already, the the meaning of experimentation. So, another term put for experimentation is the word testing. Okay, we are testing. Testing is necessary because it will provide us more evidence about the certain issues that we are trying to deliver to our respondents or interviewees. So, if we allow our interviewers and respondents to at least answer our questions, our surveys based from their analogy on or understanding about things. Okay, most of the discussion inside our research were really timely at the same time based from experience. Okay, di ba? Because we are more on the factual side of our study. So if we are testing them and allowing them to at least give their feedback about our study, answering our questions with honesty and one uh, uh, you know polite put. So siguro ma-achieve na to ang necessary answer nga kinahanglan nato for our research. Okay, so how about repeatability and reproducibility of experimental data? So there is a difference between repeatability and reproducibility. Okay, if you talk about uh, reproducible data, they are arise from within the sample measurements. So if you talk about repeatable data, these are data that are obtained from between sample runs. So how do we do the repeatability? It can be demonstrated through precision of the different measurements or replicating the conducted uh, procedure. For example, conducted the same study over and over again using the same equipment and materials or method. That can be done with a short period of time. So repeatability can be achieved if okay, comparing this one to the experiment, we have what we call trial and errors. Di ba? You're familiar with that one. So trial and error man good, we are comparing answers to answers to answers. Di ba? And for example, the the acceptable value that we need or the let's say the data, the exact measured nga data nga ato ang gusto makuha is about 97%. Okay, let's not go with 100% because it will be too ambitious for us to really achieve 100%, no? Let's talk about 97% lang. And then during sa ato ang studies, experimentation, testing, everything, we gather only 93 to 94%. Okay, that's too far from our 97. So through repeatability, we can use this procedure by know replicating the same kind of procedure all over again, just to make sure that we are really close to the supposed uh, value or kind of itang measured value nga dapat necessary sa ato ang study. So kung sa experiment sa laboratory, mag-trial 1 to 1 to 5 hantod mo close ta dito sa atong answer nga kinahanglan jud nato, because that is what precision is all about, di ba? Something if it's too far, it means that there's something wrong with your method, no? Imagine na kung 91% out of 97, that's the marginal error is grabe na ka dako. Okay, pasabot na there's something wrong sa imong method na ginagamit. So through repeatability, we can actually get no the result that we needed if necessary, that is really pud needed sa atuang the result that is needed for our study. How about reproducibility? Okay, it indicates the ruggedness and the robustness of the analytical procedure or methodology used, such that even when other groups or researchers adopt exactly the same method using their own set of equipment and materials. So, in other words, if we talk about reproducibility, this is where you are using the same method that was used from your adopted study. For example, no, na ang yung sa inyo ang RRLs, syempre naman yung mga datas dito nga somewhat like the same no sa imuhang kwan, sa imuhang conduct study. Uh, Dayon, because if you're a good reader, you'll be amazed on the output of that original uh, article or data nga imuhang gihimong reference for your research. So, na-amaze ka sa result, na-amaze ka sa method that was used, and then you wanted also to happen that in your research. So, what you did is, imong gi-copy ang method nga na to. Diba? But your research advisor told you that you can only use this following methods because this is the only method that will give you an exact, not exact, but at least no close answer sa imong research. Pero, again, you are more, Juan ka, you are more on the, what do you mean this one? You are more convinced on the reference that you have. So you follow the reference. Okay? So that is what reproducibility is all about. Okay, you are using the same method based from the adopted methods that you have that as your reference just to measure your just to achieve or measure the or just to achieve the result that you are expected na makakuha nimo. So what will be the result here? It can be conducted at different time, and the data that you can get will be precisely within the acceptable range. So again, if you are using the same method that was used by your reference, probably you can have a same result that is within the acceptable range. This can also be part of what we call trial. Like, what if you try lang jud nimo nga gamiton ni siya nga methods without even realizing that you will still get the same answers as you expected. So if it's not really happening, if it's the method you use is not really that helpful, then you can change your method into something, di ba? So it's not really necessary for us researchers to really follow what is in our reference. Sometimes you have to try every possible statistical methods para lang jud ma-achieve nato ang answer, especially when we have these hypothetical answers and hypothetical questions. So kinahanglan natin gitawag nga alignment. Okay. So, when we conduct experiment, we are also considering the following ethics. Okay, we are observing ethics also. So when we conduct an experiment, be aware that the ethical consideration must be strictly observed in the following aspects. First is never plagiarize experimental procedures. Okay. When can we say that we're plagiarizing our experimental procedures is that when we are really or when we are not adapting anymore. Okay, pasabot na uh, yes, we are using this method, but it is not really the methods that is gonna quite something that we are using the method existed na dito sa ato ang reference. Okay? Or we copy paste every data coming from our reference. Or what else? When you are, you know, when we have this sample experimental procedures coming from other references, that could be a good help because that will be our guide. But the problem is that when you are now copying everything, the table, the graph, the every details of the reference, imo siya i-copy paste mo work, and that will not be good diba? The result might not be that quite good because you are now plagiarizing the whole content. So, grabe ang consequence na once somebody or basta mabawaan na sa panel. Another also secure necessary permits or licenses with regards with regards with the orient or with regards to the use of testing the animals or when you are testing. Okay. For researchers, we have this letter, no, signed by our advisors or uh, any authoritarian ng mga personnel nga mo allow sa atua to conduct a study from our respondents or to our respondents. So you have to ask some permit, no? Try to ask their consent before conducting the experiment or before conducting the test. Another also is before performing any experiments or before you conduct the study, be ready to undergo induction trainings or orientations. So I think you're well aware naman siguro as a student because you are already oriented on what to do, especially when you're about to conduct your study or when you're about to gather some datas. You are well aware on what to do naman siguro. Uh, the orientation must be properly used and it should be okay. But let's escape this one because it's not really necessary. Also, is never fabricate and never falsify experimental data, or let's say never fabricate and never falsify your answer. Diba? Uh, it's a big deal when you are fabricating and falsifying the information, especially the result. Once you fabricate man good, or you falsified every datas. Okay, let's compare this one. Let's connect this one to plagiarism. You are manipulating your answer. Okay, kanus aman day usahay ang mga tao when they are convinced na mag-falsify na lang or mag-fabricate na lang sa ilahang mga data or sa ilang result. Okay. This can only be done if the researcher found out that the data they collected really did not match on the hypothetical questions and answers nga nabuhat na nila. Remember, if there's no alignment between the different uh, components sa research, especially if it's not really aligned to the possible result that you wanted and the solution of the problem, that will be a big problem. Okay, another problem na put na siya sa una-una ninyo. So most of the time, they are fabricating their answer. Okay, they are creating, falsifying ng mga conclusions, generalizing the data without even recognizing the importance of every numbers or even recognizing the real score, diba? The real data of uh the kanang kwan, the real data that was or the real result no coming from the different kanang from the test. So wala choice ang uban no. Ina na lang tatakaan ang answer, tatakaan ang generalization, tatakaan ang conclusion. Then once the panelists find na medyo dili lagi mao, no? There's no connection na gitanan. Balik ka uno. Okay, that's the only suggestion nga ihatag sa kwan. Panelist, you have to go back sa start because if you wanted to prove your answer, then you have to make sure that everything is aligned. Also, we have here, no, refer to past studies with somewhat unlikely information to enable other researchers to carefully consider what factors may have contributed and influenced the results and to give them options to pursue another approach. Okay? So, what do you mean by referring our study sa atong past studies? Of course, if our reference, those are considered as past studies. Okay? And then, sometimes, if we wanted to at least have the same approach as what the past studies had, we are mostly unlike na mag-follow sa method ginagamit, no? We are now triggered to research more usa kay gibuhat nila, how did they come up with this answer? What are the possible methods that they use? Nagamit ba sila og kanang kuan monetary type nga ito sa statistical measurement. So sometimes usahay pod no, we tend to compare our answers to the past studies, no? Usa ka nila, usa ka ilang sekreto dani. So it happens, no, it happens. Another also is make sure you document your result thoroughly and appropriately. So documentation, again, it could be sa kwan. Pwede po na siya sa unsa nga pamaagi. Either you can document that one through picture taking or nag picture sa inyuha while doing the interview, taking notes, no? Jotting every information coming from the respondents, especially when you do the interview, collect the information but make it confidential in case lang na ay mangutana nga panel about proving your case. Okay, when you try to prove your case that everything inside the study is really reliable and based from the perception and the answers of the real people. So naay pamaagi daghan. So data gathering can be expensive and laborious, of course. Ano, medyo matrabaho jud ang data gathering because it involves time, and it involves also time management and budgeting. Okay, so it is important that a researcher like you should be able to properly document activities involving data collections. Documentation pertains to the handling and managing of the data generated from these exercises. Writing down notes using a notebook is the simplest documentation method. Sa amo sa una sa ako ang experience na nga, I jot down not only taking the picture but I also jot down every informations from my respondents. Like I will ask them about their personal about personal informations. Asa sila nagkuan, sa ilahang major, sa ilahang asa sila nagpuyo, uh, what are the things that they are kind of bitang uh, what are their statements about this following one kanang mga kanang bitang when I asked them about how or what they felt after the interview or after the survey questioning. So yan na, no, I document those through writing those. Pero kung nag-diary na time. So what will be the kwan? What will be the outcome of documenting everything? Siyempre, it will give us a significant findings. And also, it will also serve as our backup plan. Again, if ever the panelist is not convinced on our study. So, okay, nakipakita nga proof. You really did your job very well, that you have conducted really the study very well, and that you have real people involved during sa gathering sa data. Okay. So ako lang gikuan na request no, ako lang gi-involve dani gamay ang about sa chemistry. Okay, since we're talking about accuracy, precision, and the percentage error. So how do you evaluate accuracy and precision? I think you are well aware naman siguro on what is the difference between accuracy and precision. Accuracy is a measure of how close a measurement comes to an actual or true value of whatever is measured. And precision is a measure of how close a series of measurements are to one another, irrespective of the actual value. The actual value that we're talking about here is really the value that we needed to make our study more on the kind of proven siya, and it's not really just theoretically made. To evaluate the accuracy of measurement, the measured value must be compared to the correct value. And for the precision of a measurement, you must compare the values of two or more repeated measurements. Siguro ato na siyang ma-compare gapon sa atong sa probability. Diba? What would be the probable percentage or say numbers nga dapat jud ato makuha and dapat jud mo i-answer. Okay, the best example for that one is this dart. Okay, we have a dartboard here and we have this mga darts. Okay, so si dart then, we have a dartboard and as you can observe, no, most of the dart or the arrows here are in the circle. Okay, bullseye, no, na bullseye siya. So it has a good accuracy and a good precision. That's the interpretation of this one. Also, we have here, no, it is the dart arrows are aligned together. Okay, sunod-sunod sila. And the result will be poor in accuracy but good precision. Pasabutan na it's too far from the needed actual value, but it has a precise result like nagsunod sila, no? Nagsunod. Nagsunod siya through paingon na sa correct answer. The third one is as you observe, no, ang mga dart arrows are far from each other. So the interpretation of this one is that we have a good a poor accuracy and a poor precision. Ngano poor man sa ang precision sir nga ang precision man kaha kay pwede ra gyapon nga magsunod. Actually wala siya nagsunod kani. We have different answers and most of these answers really are too far from each other. So kung muna siya mga answers ninyo like this third one, you cannot achieve the accuracy or the precision of your answer. No, so medyo malisod siya ma-interpret because it means that there's an error happening here. Okay, speaking of error, we also have here determining the percentage error, especially when you are comparing the experimental value to the accepted value. So to find out the error, all we need to do is to minus the experimental value to the accepted value. Saan man. Like for example, if we have since we're talking about chemistry here, for example, we have an accepted value of 100 degrees Celsius. That should be the boiling point of our sample. But what we have only is a 99.1% 99.1 degrees Celsius. So how can we identify the error? All we need to do is to subtract. So we have 99.1 degrees Celsius as uh, our experimental value, and of course our 100 degrees Celsius as our accepted and true value. Question: what will be the percentage of the product? Okay, so if we will get the percentage of the percent error of the 99.1 degrees Celsius and the 100 degrees Celsius, we have here percent error is equals to the measured minus accepted divided by accepted times 100. We have 99.1 divided minus 100 divided by 100 times 100 degrees, 100%. So after that method or after recognizing the equation, makuha na nato ang iyang percentage error. Actually, class, this is also happening especially sa mga survey bitaw. Sa inyo gani na sa inyohang research, di ba? You have the marginal errors. So we're not really seeking for 100% sure answer, but at least no, there is either an accuracy or there's a precision happening during the data gathering or during the collection of data or interpreting the data. So if you find out like again go back to sa 97% nga actual value, tapos ang imo lang nakuha through experimental is only 83. So it's too far, no? Even for the marginal error, it's too far. So you have to do something with your method. Try to change, no? Evaluate, assess if you're really using a good and a right method. Kung wala siya, kung dili siya, change, no? Change lang nato. So I guess that's it for our discussion about essentials of conducting experiment. So please, those are the things that involves, or those are the things that kwan that explains the uh, you know the following process on conducting an experiment or when you are doing interview. Okay, any questions so far? Valid reaction? None. So I suppose you are ready na for your kwan, no? For your capstone research. So after our discussion this next week class, the remaining the remaining session sa atong 3 eyes, so we'll be spending that one sa inyong kwan na lang, sa inyong capstone research. And the remaining time or session for our physics will now be focusing dito na sa inyong performance task or project. Did I make myself clear about my announcement?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kasabot man day. Okay. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the class and hope to see you next week. Okay. So God bless and have a great day. Marty Sinyara na kadya? Marty Sinyara. Okay, Marty, pwede ka, ay sa pag-out, Marty, okay, please remain. Either us, kami na, exit.
Bye, sir.
Bye. Ay sa pag-exit, Marty.
Bye, sir.
Bye, bye, bye. Bye. Okay, Marty. Maeno, Marty, kung usa na ikuan, Marty, usa na imo ang decision sa imong kinabuhi as a student?
Sir,
Maeno, usa na imong kuan, usa na imong plano?
ay kanang na pwede mag-apas sa sir kana mag-apas ako sir ba itong mga nabiyaan ako bitaw sir.
Dili ko, kuan, Marty, di na ko convince sa imo ang mga ingana nga pakulo dong. Can you please visit the school? Because we'll be settling everything, man good. The decision has been made by the following subject teachers. And kinahanglan naa ka to hear our decision regarding sa imong status as a student. If you can, please bring
Yes, sir.
with you your parents. Karon nga simana lang unta.
Yes sir. Pwede ugma sir.
Ugma karon bisa unsa nga kwan, Marty, because di na murag kwan jud, need jud kag kanang disciplinarian nga action. Di na mahimo nga mo contact lang ka sa amo nga wala lang. Okay. Parang kang istorya, ga-reach out ang advisor sa imo ha, ga-reach out me, dili ka reply, wala kay you are doing the same thing all over again. Magpa lang ka. Magparamdam lang ka pag pre-final and final na and di na dyan na siya pwede sa amua. So, kinanglan imong parent naa ka dapat para madunggan yung among side. Hope you understand that kanang among concern sa imo ha. Please do not misunderstood amo ang treatment.
Thank you sir.